Welcome to Night Shadows. I'm Stewart Best, where the paranormal is normal, where that which you thought you knew, you didn't, and where the future can be known if you know exactly where to look. Well, good evening, everyone. Thanks for tuning in and listening. And we got Larry on his mountaintop. Hi, Larry. How you doing?
Oh, hanging in there, boy. Is that sun bright? And I'm staying out of it.
Oh, horrible bright. There's something really going on. We can get into that maybe in a little bit. I wanted to start, I think, with Barry Rothman's Torah code. You did some research on that. What have you got? This sounds kind of ominous from what you've said.
Well, it really does. And Barry Rothman created this Torah code on May the 13th, 2019, and basically titled General Milley, Martial Law. And, of course, Barry knows General Milley as far as I know. And anyway, something that was interesting, he put up on there, too. I don't know if you look closely at those. I posted them today on my blog, both the matrices. And he put on there QAnon, Trump to declare martial law, trust the plan. And he says he don't know whether he can trust QAnon or not. But anyway, I'll read the matrices, and they're very interesting. The first matrix he did, the matrix wording came back martial law, general, Milley, Trump, and Kim. Then a day later, he went ahead and run a deeper Torah code, code number 2, as I listed it on my blog. And here's the information. It says 1 is martial law, 2 is general, 3 is Milley, 4 is Trump, 5 is Kim, 6 is Chinese, 7 is Russian. And just to put all that together, it kind of seemed to indicate that under the Trump administration and, the new assignment of General Milley is supposed to be the chief of staff, of the military. And that's when martial law comes in under General Milley and Trump, and that somehow Kim, North Korea, and Chinese and the Russians are involved. What do you think?
Sounds like maybe an attack, or maybe they're involved in some way or another with the infiltration and fifth column. We know the Russians are, because we know Spetsnaz troops are already in here. And we know they got weapons caches everywhere. So I guess it would depend on what one thinks they're going to do to trigger it. You could have an uprising here by the fifth column. You could. It's communist, no matter which way it goes. Anyway, they could. George Soros could incite his. But the fact that you've got Milley, who is a general in the military, and you've got martial law, which is a military takeover, and that's basically a United Nations takeover, which is, of course, probably why these truckers are seeing these white communications hardened vehicles. And this probably ties in directly with this recent communications executive order that Trump just gave. And I think they disguise a lot of this stuff so people won't catch on as to what they're doing. But it seems to me that one by one they're closing all the loopholes so that they can, that speech he gave, where he was pretty tough on anybody that would oppose law enforcement. Well, what if law enforcement is acting in an illegal, unconstitutional way? Then what? There's a lot of questions to this sort of thing, and I've known for years and years that we were going to go under martial law. And if you go into the protocols, that's exactly what they said they would do. They would stir up trouble. Didn't matter who was president, actually. And that would cause us to go under martial law. And they claimed that they would tell us
the elite, the rulers, would tell us that this is only temporary for the emergency, which they themselves create. And as soon as the emergency is over, then we will rescind and you'll get all your freedoms back. And, of course, if you read the protocols, they said right in there they're lying to the people. They have no intentions whatever of giving the freedoms back. In other words, once we go into martial law, it doesn't matter who's the president. We're never going to see freedom ever again. And I think that's probably true of prophecy if you go into the beast prophecies. And I've noticed a gradual tightening down of surveillance, and nothing has been done, as I've said a number of times, with FEMA camps. Nothing's been shut down. Nothing has been rescinded on declaring America is now a war zone, and that feeds right into the NDAA military operations, where they can arrest anybody anytime for anything. And I guess my comment to the elite is you should really read your prophecies, because when the elite starts rounding up, when the sheriff departments and the police and the military start rounding up God's people, and it's God's people that's the target, the Lord says that's it. That's the straw that breaks the back. And the Lord is livid with anger at what they did and destroys all of them. It's right there in biblical prophecy written 2,500 years ago. Now, you guys in the elite, you guys in the sheriff departments, police departments, and military, I don't think you're stupid, but maybe you just don't believe what's really going on. But if you'd read your prophecies, you would know that exactly what you're doing is exactly what the Bible said you would do, and you have co-signed yourselves into eternal hellfire. I don't think it's worth it. I don't think it's worth 2 years of grandiose power where you beat up, kill anybody you feel like, to end up in eternal hellfire forever. And I've been there. I've seen it. Nobody wants to go there. The little bit that I was shown, if God showed the whole human race what little bit I saw, everybody would be on their belly screaming for mercy. And I didn't see hardly any of it. And for the life of me, Larry, I can't figure out why, when the prophecies of 2,500 years ago are coming true exactly as written, and people just ignore it. They're not paying any attention to it, or maybe they don't believe it. But I don't know how to explain it to anybody. They got to do what they got to do, and Jesus Christ has to do to the human race what he has to do. And all I can tell people is it's not going to be pleasant. You have no idea what it's like to fall under the wrath of the living God. No idea whatever. It doesn't even enter your comprehension whatever. Ask the people in Nebraska and the farmers. Ask the people down there on those hurricanes. That was a small taste, a very small taste of what God's going to do to America. We're the most hypocritical, lying nation, I think, in the entire planet. We pretend we're God-fearing, we pretend we are benevolent, and we pretend this and we pretend that. God knows different. The CIA has been going around the world stirring up trouble for I don't know how many years. And the Lord openly says, you think those people that you didn't target and bring down are not going to come back and destroy you? So I just don't know, Larry. I don't know why our government is doing what it's doing. I guess they think they're going to get away with it. It's kind of like the Democrats. To me, it's pure insanity. These people are totally, completely insane. And that includes a good share of the Republicans as well. They have no idea what they're doing. And it's just hard for me to watch because I know what's coming. I've been shown what was coming. And the Lord is not going to have any mercy on the American people at all. There is no mercy. Personally, I think he's turned his back on us already. And that's the other thing that scares me with this Iran thing. We think that we can just go in, and according to the prophecies, we do win. We do beat Iran into a pulp. But the Lord does look rather unfavorably at what we're doing around the world, and he's given us warning after warning after warning. And it would be my hope that the people would wake up, but of course Daniel says that the wicked will never understand and only the wise will figure this thing out before it's too late. But these people are co-signing themselves into eternal hellfire. And if they want to escape it when this thing starts to roll, they're going to have to put their heads in the guillotine to save their souls. And I don't know. I don't know, Larry. It's amazing, and to have that in the Bible codes that we're going under martial law, and probably because of Kim. You remember the prophecy about Kim launching a few nukes at ours, knocking out a couple of our cities, and they said they couldn't figure out where they came from at first.
Yeah, and there's also been a couple of authors that have written that same scenario in fiction novels, which may be faction novels.
Yeah, I don't know. It's sheer stupidity, I guess. I don't know what happens. The Lord does say, I will pick their delusions, because they were disobedient, and he blinds them, and they cannot see what they're doing. They're probably rolling around on the floor laughing if they're listening to this. What a lunatic. Nobody sees us. In fact, in Isaiah, that's what it says. Nobody sees us. We can do anything we want. Nobody sees us. It's just amazing. So, anyway, that's quite a code, and it's a scary code to me. Because, as I said, once we go under, and this business of QAnon, trust the plan. They are tightening the noose around the American people, particularly the Christians, the evangelicals, the people who believe in the Constitution, the people that believe in the Bill of Rights. They're being told, trust this. The Bible tells you to trust nobody but God himself. Put your trust only in the Lord. I wouldn't trust any of these people. In fact, I think QAnon's just a psyops operation. How many years have they been telling everybody that they're going to arrest all these bad people? And it's next week. It's going to happen next week. We're going to open up Gitmo, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. Clapper's still walking around. Brennan's still walking around. Soros is still walking around. All of these people have committed high treason. Nothing's being done to them. Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, all these people. Has anybody been arrested? Has anybody been indicted? No. That ought to be a clue to everybody listening. There's something wrong here. We're being lied to. It's a scam. They're disarming you by this kind of rhetoric so that when it goes down, you won't even know what to do. You know, when you have a blackout, you have a blackout, and nobody will know what's really going on. I can tell you right now what's going on. If you have a blackout, look out. They're coming for you. And I just don't believe any of this rhetoric of QAnon. You get lied to enough times, and then they can sit there and say, well, it took longer than we thought. Baloney. They're supposed to be the inside people. They know when these people were supposed to be arrested. It's all a psyops operation, folks. It's a big bunch of lies they're telling you. They're disarming you. And they're going after the guns at the same time, a little bit at a time. Now, I did hear that Trump rescinded, I don't know if you found that out, Larry, or not. I haven't been able to figure it out. But they say he rescinded the UN thing that, what's her name, did. when she was at the UN. I can't remember her name now. But she signed on to the UN gun control law. And I did hear that Trump backed off from that. So I don't know whether that's true or not. But I do know that systematically they are going after the guns. If they can get rid of bump stocks, then they can get rid of high-capacity magazines. And then they can get rid of this, and then they can get rid of that. The Second Amendment says the rights of the people to own guns or firearms shall not be infringed. And why is that in there? In order to maintain a free state. The right of the people to bear arms shall not be infringed. Look up the word infringed. It means nibble away at. That's exactly what they're doing. They're nibbling away at it. Technically speaking, this was to counter a standing military. The right to maintain a free state. Do you think martial law is a free state? Of course not. I don't think the elite have anything to worry about. Personally, I don't think the American people are going to stand up for anything. They've already pretty much proven that. So I'm not part of this anyway. I'm just an observer. I'm kind of a future historian. I'm watching all this go down. I know what the Bible prophets all had to say about it. It's going down exactly as they wrote it. And there's no excuse for anybody not knowing that. So why should the Lord have any mercy upon the American people? They are so apostate, and even the Christians are apostate. They don't do what Jesus told them to do. They haven't done it for years. If people really, really understood Bible prophecy, and particularly here in America, none of this would be going on right now because they would have risen up and put a stop to it. But instead, they're cheering this on. And woe be unto them. You know, the Lord has done this many, many times before. He takes evil people, he destroys his own people, then he turns around and destroys those that he used to destroy. So this has been going on for millennia, and people never learn. So I guess God has to do it all over again. I don't know. What's new on this Iranian situation? Doesn't sound good.
Well, yeah, there's a few reports that are very interesting, and one of them, is actually, I'll just read it to you here. This is from Hal Turner, just the last little bit. Breaking news urgent. U.S. has asked Israel to keep out of the Iran fight unless attacked. And, of course, there's an update. Says U.S. State Department issues travel warning over armed conflict as Department of State orders departure of all non-emergency U.S. government employees from Baghdad and Erbil, in other words, out of Iraq. And, all this, and as a matter of fact, the head general of the IRGC in Iran made a statement today. He said he warned that Iran is on the cusp of a full-scale confrontation with the enemy. And that's a report coming out of Fars News. And then what's other interesting, I kind of like your opinion here. This is odd. Came from a Rabbi Berkowitz, from Breaking Israel News. Headline says, Trump confronts Iran as the Tickum of Esau. And he quoted Daniel 11:2, and then said in Daniel, Trump's connection says, of course, he's talking about the Israel Bible, says ancient conflicts. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Hello.
Can you hear me, Stewart?
Yeah, oh, yeah. Yep, loud and clear.
Okay, I guess the light got knocked out. I don't know. Anyway, he's quoting Daniel and says that ancient conflicts coming full circle as Iran or Persia is a major player in end of days. And it talks about Trump. The rabbis seem to indicate that he is part of the plan.
Well, I would agree with that 100% because Daniel 8 and Daniel 11 are essentially the same battle. And, yeah, absolutely. And Trump is, I think, personally, I think Trump is the war president. I've always thought that, really, that he's here for judgment, not only for America, but for basically the world. And he's going to do what the Lord has him do. And, if the Lord is behind Trump, then, and still is, all these deep state people that are trying to get rid of him are never going to be able to get rid of him. In fact, the Lord will get rid of them first. I don't know. It's really kind of weird. So,
well, there's another
what is
thing.
this on May 15th? Department of State ordered departure of non-emergency USG employees out of Baghdad and Erbil.
Yeah, that's just what I told you.
That's
just that. Well, that's removing, according to the experts I've been listening to, they're removing government employees out of the way, and they're calling it because combat zone.
Wow.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yep.
And I wanted to mention one other thing, Stewart. You know how that Trump, is big on using Game of Thrones images, in his tweets
Yes.
and things. There's a new one on Yahoo News came out today, said The Simpsons predicted the Game of Thrones with Daenerys twist, and The Simpsons also predicted Trump's win. Question, the burning of Westeros. Now, this is interesting, Stewart. We're at the point where we may have a Daniel 8, if you will, and in this, The Simpsons are talking about a series in the Game of Thrones where the King of the North, or whatever, in the movie, of course, come down and an air attack literally destroys the capital of this other country. And I'm wondering, The Simpsons and Game of Thrones kind of indicating an attack on Iran that's aerial.
Yes, it would be, because Daniel says they touch not the ground, and they come with ferocious. In other words, it's got to be an aerial attack. They're not putting people on the ground. This is an aviation attack, so it could be cruise missiles, aviation, airplanes like F-35s, B-52s. It's an aerial attack, and it does devastate Iran. And we are the he-goat, I believe, and the ram is Iran in Daniel chapter 8. And chapter 11 just dovetails into it. Now, some people think it takes quite a while for that to go down. So I guess we're going to have to wait and see which interpretation is right. But it sounds to me, if you read Daniel 8, that it's a kind of an instant decision they make to go east, west, north, and south, and cause a lot of problems. And we decide, evidently, it takes us a little bit to figure it out, but then we decide to attack, and we basically annihilate Iran. Not totally, because Persia appears to be part of the Ezekiel 38-39 scenario as well. And so we're kind of waiting to find out Isaiah 17, Daniel 8, 11, and then Ezekiel 38-39, how all that comes together. Is it one big battle? And, we have a tendency, like if I talk about a polar shift in your mind, you rotate the planet around almost instantly. But that's not the way it happens. It takes place over a period of time, and it's the same thing, I think, with Daniel 8 and Ezekiel and Isaiah. But the fact that we are talking now about martial law in the United States, and Trump with this new communication shutdown thing that he's talking about today, I think it was orientated more towards China, but buried within there is the ability, of course, to extend that across the nation as a communication shutdown. So why would they be talking about all that right now? What do you think?
Well, that's kind of interesting. And another thing, and I don't know who watches Game of Thrones and who doesn't, but we know the symbology. But today, William Barr delivered a chilling message, according to Yahoo News and some other news agencies, to the FBI for President Donald Trump. And the wording appears to be, if true, it says, if you come at the king, you best not miss. As, and they linked that into Barr appointing U.S. Attorney John Durham, to investigate the Russian probe.
Yeah.
But on top of that, what's interesting is the fact that all this is timing of this. And, of course, the headline today was Trump declares national emergency over foreign threats against U.S. communications amid campaign against China's Huawei. But listen, I ain't going to say where I heard it and who said it. But I received some information yesterday on scenarios of a possible communications blackout, talking about the U.S. And, the information, the wisdom given was, if that happens, don't get on your radios and chatter if you're a ham operator or anything else. Just listen. Just listen to the information. Don't talk. So I find that funny. I heard that last night somewhere, and then this morning or today, Trump issued a executive order on a national communications emergency.
Yeah, I think, when you're going to do something, you have a blackout. You have a blackout, I should say. And so nobody knows really what's going on or why it's going on. It's part of the tactics of a takeover. And once, as I've said before, once you lose martial law, you can forget about ever getting it back. And those who rebel against it will probably just simply be liquidated, rounded up, put into FEMA torture death camps, and that'll be the end of it. We allowed this to happen, folks. We've given way, way, way too much power to the government. And I also heard that Trump is releasing all kinds of ex-military equipment out to the rural districts or the sheriff departments. Why would you do that? Unless you got something in mind. It's like the FEMA coffins, hundreds of thousands of them. It's all kinds of military operations going on. Even the Russians. I don't know if you're going to believe them, but they said when they did their open skies treaty flyovers that there was all kinds of internal military operations going on. So I believe this is a heads up. We only got a minute left. What else you got there, Larry?
Well, I was just going to mention an oddity today, and as you know, a lot of multiple CMEs are approaching Earth. One hit last night. Space Weather recorded it, and it said it opened up our protective magnetic field and poured into the planet. And it went all the way to the G3, which was not predicted. That's a biggie. That's really a biggie. And when I tried to check the UV today, they're reporting the servers are down or under maintenance during this bombardment. What do you think?
Yeah, I bet they are. Yeah, they just don't want to tell people what's really going on. The sun is very anomalous. Be careful. Don't go outside unless you have to. Wear heavy clothing when you do. Stan Deo is warned about this. He's an expert on solar activity, and he's warned that everything is changing, and he's absolutely right. It is changing, and it's changing very rapidly. We shouldn't be having this kind of thing in solar minimum, right, Larry? We're not supposed to have this stuff going on.
No, we're not supposed to. The sun is in a solar minimum quiet, and here we are having multiple CMEs hit the planet plus radiation.
Yeah, it sounds like Dr. Major Ed Dames, Dr. Doom, and his kill shot. This may be a precursor to the kill shot. We got to get into that. Maybe we get into that on Friday when we've got a little more time. And but folks, be careful with the sun. I know a lot of people don't pay any attention to it, but be careful. UVC is now being proven to be hitting the Earth's surface, and they're lying to you about that. Anyway, thanks a lot, everyone, for listening. Take care. Thanks a lot, Larry, for coming on, and we'll see you all Friday, the Lord willing. Anyway, good night, folks.